Hey babes, Laura here. Welcome to this week's episode of the BJJ Babes podcast. I wanted to start off by talking just briefly about the fires up in the Los Angeles area. We might have some listeners up in Los Angeles, and it's so devastating. I went to my graduate school in the Los Angeles area. I spent a decent amount of time in some of the areas that are pretty heavily affected by the fires right now. I still have friends up there from graduate school. So far, I know an acquaintance did lose her home. I know a lot of people are concerned about losing their homes. Some people have lost their lives. It's just so devastating. I'm going to drop in the show notes. Hyperfly is collecting used jiu-jitsu wear, and also if you're someone who lost their training gear because you lost your home, they will provide you with a gi and a no gi kit. So I'll just drop their website in the show notes. This isn't sponsored or anything by Hyperfly. I'm just putting that out there. I'm also going to drop in the show notes an LA Times article that compiles a list of resources for people affected by the fires. If you, um, you know, have any resources that you'd like me to share or anything, my DMs are open. My thoughts and prayers and hopefully some other efforts are with Los Angeles right now. It's a place that really has a big piece of my heart. But in happier news, I'd like to introduce this week's guest is the Nogi Yogi, as she calls herself on Instagram, Jody Shields. Jody is a purple belt who trains at Mythic BJJ in Fullerton, California. I met Jody at a Girls and Geese seminar last year when I was just getting started with the podcast, and I've been wanting to have her on for a while. And once Nogi Worlds was over, we found a time that worked for us so we could chat about a lot of different things, including her run at Nogi Worlds. She did great. She double podiumed. I believe she got gold and silver. And, between interviewing her and Erin Quillen, who also is a predominantly no-gi athlete, I'm kind of feeling the no-gi. I don't know, this year might be the year I step into my no-gi era. We shall see. But a part of Jody's story that I really enjoyed and found inspiring was when she talked about how she got into jiu-jitsu. She talked about how white belt for her was about finding herself again, rediscovering herself through Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I think that's something I think mothers can be so busy taking care of everyone else around them that sometimes they forget to take care of themselves. And you have to find something for yourself. You have to, because no matter what role you play in someone's life, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not in the best position to take care of others. And so if jujitsu is that outlet for, I think it can be a great outlet for moms, especially, stay out there, keep doing it, take care of yourself. And with that, here is Jody, the Nogi Yogi. Hey, we're here with Jody, aka the Nogi Yogi. How you doing, Jody?
Good, thanks. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I wanted to start with because at the time we were recording this, Nogi Worlds was last week, so I did want to say congratulations. You got a gold and silver.
Thank you.
It's awesome. Jody, you want to take a second, introduce yourself to the listeners?
I'm Jody Shields. Instagram is Nogi Yogi. That's usually how people remember me. Which is really funny to be recognized by your Instagram. It's kind of a weird thing that I'm still getting used to.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I'm a purple belt. I train at Mythic in Fullerton, and I'm Canadian actually. So I've lived in California for 8 years now. Yeah,
I
still
love
getting
that.
used to it.
Yeah, I think you're like my third Canadian guest.
Yeah, I think that's actually how also we met in San Diego, right? But
Yeah.
I started seeing that you had all these Canadian guests. I'm like, hey, that's cool.
Yep. Just have a little base there in Canada of friends of the pod. Love it. Yeah, and when we met, I think the girl who introduced us at what was it, Girls and Geese. She like pulled over. She's like, the Nogi Yogi's here, and that's how she
Yes.
introduced me to you.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this a thing? And then like we followed each other on Instagram, and I was like, oh, it's her Instagram handle.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like I kind of expect it now at open mats or seminars or things like that, but when people say it to me like in Target, I'm always like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. This is out of context.
It is funny, but it is, I've found both with my personal Instagram and the podcast Instagram, like Instagram seems to be the way people in jiu-jitsu connect.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you want to start off, talk about how you got into jiu-jitsu?
So actually, it was my kids that got me into it. My son started jujitsu at Unlimited Possibilities. It's a adaptive jujitsu, so there's people of various physical needs, or my son is autistic, and that's why we started there. And it was just I watched him, I think like probably a year and a half or 2 years before I decided to try it out myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just watch him, and like the coach there is amazing, and the amount of confidence that he gained
Mm-hmm.
was in like such a short amount of time too. Like when he started out, he was 4,
Mm-hmm.
and he had like so much anxiety. He couldn't even get on the mat. Like we started so slow. We would start like, okay, let's stand at the door. Let's sit in the chair. We'll sit at the edge of the mat. We'll sit on the mat. Like it took that much. And the coach was like, honestly, so patient, so understanding, and really like individualized the class for everyone in there because everyone has different needs. It's like a totally mixed class. And I just watched like so much growth and empowerment in him. And, he would want to practice at home. I was like, all right, I better know what I'm doing, right? So yeah, I watched him for like a year and a half or so. And then his coach invited me to try a class at her friend's school, which at the time was BTT, Brazilian Top Team,
Mm-hmm.
in Fullerton. And so I tried a class, and actually it was no gi. I remember thinking like, this is so gross. Like, I'm like, it's so sweaty, it's so slippery. I thought it was so gross, which is hilarious now because I primarily do no gi.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's how I started out. And then, I bought a gi and I started training. And then, so that was 2019, like the beginning 2019.
Okay.
And around the same time, I went over to the UFC gym in La Mirada just to like work out, not for anything else. And I saw one day while I was working out that they had a jujitsu class going on, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like I can just join that class because it's part of your membership. And they were like, yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
So I started training there. So I would do like 3 nights a week over at BTT and 3 nights a week at UFC, which
Mm-hmm.
I like dove right off the bat.
Yeah.
And they actually had a women's class, and I started going to that and like, making friendships. And like jujitsu is so relationship based, I feel like. And I was really able to like build those relationships and trust with different people at the UFC gym. Not to say that I didn't over at the other gym, it's just a totally different vibe, right? Like they're a major competition team, and I was just starting. I was like
Mm-hmm.
37 when I started, so I was like, this is a little much, but it worked out. Like going to both of them was really fun. And then obviously 2020 happened
Mm-hmm.
and everything shut down. And I remember calling like the coach over there. I'm like, are you having like, you know, secret training or anything? And he
Mm-hmm.
was like, no, we're not doing that. And I'm like, okay. So the coach from UFC actually was having like private training.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up doing that for a little bit, just with one partner, and we would go like every Saturday or whatever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And until he actually ended up opening his own school, Mythic. So I kind of followed him and just kept training with him, and kind of left the other gym. And yeah, I've been at Mythic ever since then.
That's awesome. And I currently train at a UFC gym. I think and Aaron Quillen started at a UFC gym as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it can be a
It's a
great,
great starting point.
yeah. Well, and I read I think I read on Reddit, people were talking about UFC gyms and they were like, they actually pay their professors. So it's a good place for professors to start and then go do what your professor did and open his own gym.
Yeah, yeah. And then you get like all the reps of being a coach before you have to put your own money on the line, right?
Yeah, totally. So you've been training since 2019. So that's about going on 6 years, I guess. It's almost 2025.
Yeah,
What has your
yeah.
journey been like through the belts now that you are a purple belt?
So I think like every belt has been quite distinct. Like in the beginning, it was just surviving, right? Like trying to figure out what is even happening. I think even a bigger part of white belt for me was like finding myself again. Like my kids were so little when I started, and they're both autistic, and so like their needs were my entire everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually really hard. Like being able to leave at night and go to train was a huge adjustment for our family. Like my husband, bless him, like
Mm-hmm.
he really held it down. He's like, "No, you need to do something." Because before kids, I boxed competitively, so I've always like been very competitive. And after having kids, and I was just like, "Ugh, I don't have any time. Never mind like time to pursue something like that, right?" So a big part of white belt was just like rediscovering myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved to California, it was so stressful. Like, I can't even explain, like, trying to navigate the American health system without understanding, like, what is happening.
Yeah.
And, like, two autistic kids with, like, all these needs and, like, therapies. And I remember getting a surprise bill, for, like, I can't even, like, thousands. And I was like, okay, so we're not doing that anymore. Like, but yeah, like no family out here, didn't know anyone, and like I just stress ate.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up gaining 100 pounds the first year that we lived here. So when I started jujitsu, I was like very, very overweight. And it was like everything to me. It was like, this is how I'm gonna find myself again. This is, or not even find myself, just come back to myself. Right. And so like I'm not just a mom. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are things I want to do, there are passions that I have, and being a competitive athlete was always part of my identity. And so like getting that piece back through jujitsu, which I found through my kids, is ironic, right?
Yeah, but also like beautiful, and
Yeah.
the example you're setting for your kids, and just also for other mothers too. I think it is so important for women to have something for themselves, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard having kids, and then having special needs kids just makes it extra hard. And kudos to your husband for, being that partner. We love our strong jujitsu supportive partners.
Exactly. Like he will never get on the mat, and that's fine.
Yeah.
He gives me the space to do it, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I am still trying to get my boyfriend on the mat. He's gone to like one class with me. He'll be my uke, but that's about it. But yeah,
Yeah.
having like, having that support system. What made you put your kids into jujitsu for their special needs?
So for my oldest, he started first, obviously. I was just looking for something. He was very, very aggressive. And I needed something like to channel that. And everyone told me like you're crazy that you're gonna put an aggressive kid into a martial art and like give him actual skills. I was like, well, I think it's important. Like it will help him channel that energy and give him an outlet where it's okay to be aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like he's gonna learn how to control it by learning these techniques. And so yeah, I think I didn't even know what jujitsu was, to be honest. I just looked up like special needs martial arts,
Mm-hmm.
and it just happened that this was a program in our city. I'm like, okay, let's try it.
Yeah. No, there's a gym here in San Diego. I follow them on Instagram, and I'd like to have the owner on the podcast at some point, because I think the whole intersection of jujitsu and autism and special needs and jujitsu as therapy is fascinating,
Yeah.
really cool. So it's cool that like that's how you got into it, and then it ended up also being like bringing you back to yourself. So that was white belt, was learning how to
Yeah.
survive, coming back to yourself. So what was blue belt like?
So blue belt, I got my blue belt in 2020, the end of 2020 at Mythic. And shortly after that, my coach asked me if I would lead a women's class at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? Wait
No
a minute. Like,
pressure.
I just got my blue belt. What are you talking about, right? And there were higher belts than me, like other women. I'm like, well, what about them? Like, why? And he just told me, he's like, he was running the women's class and teaching it himself, and he just felt like a leader will present themselves, and he thought that it was me. I had competed already and had been doing well, and so I think that was part of it. But I remember telling him like, okay, I need to think about this because I don't know like if I can do that,
Yeah.
And I didn't want to step on anyone's toes, with higher belts, and especially coming from like a more traditional school where the hierarchy mattered. Like at Mythic, it's very relaxed and everyone learns from everybody, and I love that. I
Yeah.
really love that. But I remember feeling like, ooh, I don't know if I can do that. So I thought about it for a little while, and then I was like, you know what, I can do that, but I want to do it with one of the higher belts so that I can like grow into that position.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out so good. Like I can't even, it was so much fun. And when we first started, I didn't want to be like, okay, I'm the one telling everyone what to do. So I kind of put it on everyone. I'm like, we're all going to teach each other. So if there's something that you're really good at or something that you're really interested in, let me know and we'll work together and we can teach that to everyone together. So it wasn't just me up there because that's scary, right?
Yeah.
And so for the first year, that's how we did it. Like once a month, one of the other women would help, like, plan whatever it was, and then we would work on that for the month. And it was just once a week. We did it on Sundays, so it wasn't like too overwhelming.
Yeah.
Um, then the second year of Blue Belt, I was still teaching, but now it was like more on me. And I wanted to like really emphasize community. Um, and so every month we call ourselves the witches, mythic witches. And it's every month I would do witch of the month, right? And I would like send out a thing. I'm like, everyone tell me what you love about this person. And I would just post it on Instagram or whatever. And I really wanted to make everyone feel like this was something to be a part of rather than like, I'm just telling you these techniques. And I think that it was really good. Like I was competing and I was teaching and like I grew so much doing that. Like teaching, I think it makes you have to know like inside and out. You have to know the technique and like the theory behind it, the concepts in order to get that information across, but also to like troubleshoot when someone's not able to do it. Like if you only know the step-by-step instructions, then when someone's not getting it, you can't really troubleshoot that, right? So it really like pushed me to learn. And that's when I discovered that I am much more of a conceptual learner than a step-by-step learner. We have a coach who he loves to joke around and say that I hate his class. The context behind that is that he's very detail oriented and he would give us a lot of details, right? And in my mind, I was like, okay, so I do this and then this and then this and then this, but what if like, something goes wrong in between there and then you can't do it? And I just had like no context for that level of detail. I wasn't ready for that level of detail. So I needed to kind of take my learning on myself and like take responsibility for that aspect of it. And so I started like listening to podcasts and like reading things and looking things up and just finding a conceptual framework to like hang all those details on. And then it started making so much more sense?
No, it's interesting. I was just talking to one of my coaches today about the different learning styles, and he was talking about, like, I guess there's 5 different learning styles, and teaching, you're trying to, like, ideally you're teaching to all of them, but it's
Hmm.
difficult. We all do learn differently. And I think sometimes the task-based step by step, I think one of the things I struggle with that is like exactly what you said. It's like what happens when you get a reaction that's outside of the reaction that you're taught in that technique. But if you know the concept, you
Yeah.
can you can adapt.
I think the best example of this for myself, that when I like first really realized how bad it was for me, was side control, escaping side control. Because obviously, and when you start, you're basically always there.
Yes.
And I remember like because you're taught to escape it once they get there, right?
Mhm.
And so it never occurred to me that I could start defending it long before they
Mhm.
actually get there. And when I realized that there's like 1,000 steps between them passing and getting side control, I'm like, oh, it doesn't have to be so hard like when they're already on you. Because side control is supposed to be difficult. If it wasn't an effective pin, we wouldn't use it,
Yeah.
right? So all the time we're spending all this time like trying to escape this really dominant position, but we've lost the context of like how did we even get there?
Hmm.
And there's so many steps in between, and I was just like, it was like a light bulb. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
I don't have to wait, because I would literally wait before I started the sequence that we had learned. I'm like, okay, now I can start escaping, rather than how about we just, proactively not let them get that close.
Yeah, especially like, depending on the gym you're at and what their curriculum is like, when you're going in, you're going into a technique of the night and it's whatever the
Hmm.
school is working on. And so, like, that one thing. You don't know, like, the concepts. I mean, some schools, I guess, do orientations. They might be like, this is a guard, this is shrimping, this is what it means. Like, but you don't really have any context. It's like,
Yeah.
if you come in there and it happens to be like, this is the time we're working on side control escapes, it's exactly like what you said. It's like, you just assume, okay. And then I think the other part of it too is, I don't know if you feel this way, but like when I started, they'd teach you the escape and you drill it and you do it, as the professor taught you. And because you're drilling it, like your partner's giving it to you. But then, like, you go to do the roll and it immediately unravels and you're like, but I'm doing
Yeah.
steps.
I actually remember rolling with this one guy, and I'm doing everything, and he's like, I don't, he's like, you're doing everything right. It's just not working. I was like, well, I guess I don't know if that's a compliment or not. Like, yeah, I'm doing all the steps, but it is having zero effect.
Yeah, but I think that's where the conceptual, like, if we all have different body types, our opponents have different body types, we all move different ways. So, if you think about it more, I want to get this reaction and I want their weight to go this way versus like if I
Yeah.
do A to B to C, I think my game got better when I started understanding that.
Yes, for sure. Same with me. Like when I realized that every single sweep is basically just removing their ability to post, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. Like it doesn't matter necessarily if I grip here first and then do this. Like as long as the outcome is what I wanted, I can kind of do it in any order that I want or that presents itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah, as long as you're taking away, yeah, their ability to post, their ability to defend themselves, and getting your timing. When you started teaching the women's class, did he have a set curriculum that he wanted you to stick with, or was it just open, like, do what you want?
I'm kind of a mixture. He did have a curriculum. We kind of just did whatever we did in the regular classes during the week. I would kind of use that. And we had a 2-hour block every Sunday, so there's plenty of time to like really workshop. And so after we would do whatever the technique was, if there was something that someone wanted to work on, we could dive into that too.
Very cool. And then so we talked about blue belt, and you started teaching at blue belt, which is really cool. And I think teaching helps learning, like teaching.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like there like details I think that I need to work on, I will teach them to other people to remind myself,
Yeah.
like, get this grip and get your elbow in here. And it's because I don't do it and I know I don't do
Yeah, it like reinforces that pathway in your mind.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when did you get your purple belt?
I got my purple belt at the end of last year. So
Okay.
it's been a year. Yeah. And that was like, honestly, so I got that belt, and then I think it was 2 weeks later, I did Nogi Worlds as a purple
Oh
belt.
my God.
And I was like, what am I doing? Like, whatever, let's just see what happens. And I ended up getting silver. So that was last year at the purple belt. And I remember being like so happy, like so genuinely happy because I had just got my purple belt and I'm like, whatever happens, happens. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah.
And so to actually get silver, I was like, ooh, I guess I'm kind of good at this. I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really fun. And I um I lost the finals match just by decision. Like there was no points or anything. We didn't even go to the ground. So we literally didn't even do jiu-jitsu. It was all hand fighting, and like that's the one thing that bothers me about the weight class, like the super heavy,
Hmm.
is there's a lot of just collar tie and like heavy shoving around. And um so after losing to that decision,
Hmm.
I was like, okay, I'm never gonna do that again. Like I don't want to get stuck in that collar tie shoving match and then have it go decision to the other person.
Yeah.
So it really like motivated me to start focusing. And I love stand up anyway. I mean, coming from a boxing background, I'm like comfortable on my feet, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but it motivated me. I'm like, okay, I have to find an answer to this.
Hmm.
And so I was like really working on it. And during those matches, I this was also kind of dumb on my end, but I had torn my calf like at the Thanksgiving right before Worlds. So in November I had torn my calf, and then I still did Worlds in
Oh,
December, which
oh, ow.
in retrospect was like so stupid because I couldn't really I couldn't jump. I couldn't like bounce on it in any sort of way. And so stepping was like really difficult. So I was like, okay, maybe I can pull guard, but I couldn't. Like I am not a guard player, and the thought of like intentionally putting myself there, I'm like, I'm not gonna do that.
Hmm.
But it gave me like so much motivation to find other answers, right? Because I got stuck in that like collar tie shoving match, and like I don't ever want to lose like that again.
How did you, what was your process for finding those answers?
Most difficult was finding a partner that was willing to do a whole lot of wrestling and takedowns. Uh, that's difficult. So I definitely appreciate and love everyone that helped me out in that regard, especially as we got closer to the end of this year for Worlds again. I was really like trying to push myself and like just making different drills for myself that would hit on the weak points. So I know a lot of times when I get into those heavy collar ties, it's really hard to clear them, and then there will be a break. And I would just walk back to the center, even though the ref hadn't reset us.
Hmm.
Right. And so one of the games that I like made for myself was okay, anytime there's a break, I have to take a shot, or anytime there's a break, I have to do something, right? I can't just like make it neutral again.
Yeah.
And I think that really helped me mentally. Mentally just being like, okay, go, go, go. Because those breaks would come and then I'm like, well, that was a wasted opportunity.
Hmm.
And when I would watch the tape back, I'm like, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that. So that was one thing that was really good. Another thing was to have a guard pull that wasn't really a guard pull. So I would, and this was thanks to my coach, because this is something that he does quite a lot, off of an arm drag, which in in a lot of open mats, I get the feedback that my arm drags are pretty devastating is the word that they use, which I like, I love that.
Yeah.
Um, and so he was like, okay, let's use that, but let's use it in a way that gets you like to the ground.
Hmm.
And so I was basically using the arm drag to pull myself in to their legs rather than going to the back. And so I was pretty much like I would get the arm drag grip and use that to hang like a vine and shoot my hips into their legs so that I could wrestle up to the back. So I'm like going down to come back up. And it's like shockingly effective because a lot of the time when I would hit the arm drag and I am falling to my hip, it's pulling them so far over that they're hitting the floor anyway.
Hmm.
So then I could just wrestle up and we're already down. Everything's ready to go.
Yeah, that's like I've seen my coaches have shown me like basically fake a guard pull to an ankle pick, but I haven't heard like
Mhm.
arm drag, fake a guard pull, go to the back. That's yeah, because I'm not a guard player either. My guard sucks. I'm working on my guard. That's my goal. Just you know, in the event I end up there or like my last competition, I wasn't even pulling guard, but I just was failing on, this is in the gi collar drag. So I wasn't getting people on the ground. So then I was having to play guard.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, when did you transition to predominantly no gi and what led to that change?
So it would have been, yeah, during Blue Belt. And we had a wrestling class at our gym, which I just fell in love with. Like I loved the intensity of it. I love stand up, so that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just really loved it. And I found the gi already so restrictive.
Mm-hmm.
And then your fingers hurt from like gripping it. And I remember sitting there like taping my fingers, and then the physio, it was like, you should just make your fingers stronger. Don't tape them. Like, okay, so I was adding like rice buckets, like all the things for my hands, and I was like, I don't even like wearing the gi. Like, it's so restrictive. I feel like I can't squat properly because the pants are like so awkward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so yeah, I just kept doing more of the wrestling classes, and it's nice because at Mythic we have like a pretty balanced like gi and no gi
Mm-hmm.
class offerings. So I was able to go like 2, 3, 4 times a week to Nogi. I'm like, this is my jam. I like this better. And I really like the pace of it and the athleticism of it. Yeah, I just fell in love with it.
Yeah. I think also as we get older, I'm like, I probably need to transition to more no gi because I'm gonna end up with some serious arthritis. Like,
Right?
yeah.
You look at every coach's knuckles and they're like knobby.
Oh my god, yeah. We've been doing spider guard this week, and I'm just coming at it like my wrist hurts. Like, I love
Yeah.
spider guard, but I'm like, yeah, this is why I don't play it.
Yeah, it hurts.
So Nogi Yogi. So, sounds like you also have a pretty extensive yoga practice.
Yeah, so yoga, I got introduced to yoga, well, rather meditation really early. Like I was in grade 6. And our teacher every Friday would have us do a guided meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we started, I'm like, why are we wasting our time? Like I just wanted to be outside playing soccer or whatever.
Yeah.
But as the year went on, I like came to really appreciate it and look forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was guided, so he would like talk to us, and I'm sure everyone visualized something different, even though he's saying the same thing to everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really helped me. Like, I had a lot of anger as a kid. And it just helped. It was so grounding, so calming, and to realize that I could control like my inner self,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what was going on outside of me. And so it really gave me like that sense of peace, which I didn't expect. Like I said at the beginning, I'm like, why are we wasting our time?
Yeah.
Like nap. I remember going home like, Mom, I can't believe we're having nap time in grade 6. Like I was so against it, but yeah, I really appreciated it by the end of the year, and then I kind of just kept doing it on my own. And I guess as a teenager, I started going to like actual yoga classes,
Mm-hmm.
and I just loved it. Like the connection between breath and movement was like so calming, and I fell in love with that. So I've been doing that for a long time. Over COVID, I did a certification through Yoga for BJJ. They did an online one,
Oh, and I.
which was so fun. Like there was a group of us, and we're just in our garages or our living rooms or whatever on Zoom doing yoga together and like teaching it. And it was such a great way to connect with people at a time when you really couldn't, right?
Yeah.
So, and then being able to like bring that back to my women's class when things did open up, um, yeah, it really added value, I think.
Yeah, one of the nicknames for Jiu Jitsu is murder yoga. I've got the murder in my car. But I do think like that movement and breathing, obviously Jiu Jitsu is a little more violent and close contact, but they do complement each other. How did you incorporate that into your women's class?
So I would use yoga as a warm up. So we would do like 15 minutes of yoga right at the beginning, and then constantly reminding people like be aware of your breath, because a lot of comments that I would get like, how can you be so calm when you're like obviously in a bad position or whatever, how do you stay so calm? And for me, it's just coming back to the awareness of your breathing.
Mm-hmm.
If you can control your breathing, especially under that stress, under that chaos, you're going to be fine, right? Like that's the one thing that you can really control and really tune into, because everything else is so it's out of your control. Like
Yeah.
you can't control what your partner is going to do. You can't control whether you're going to be able to escape that or whatever it is, but you can use your breath to calm your mind, to calm your body, and then work your way out of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And how do you think doing the yoga for BJJ has complemented and advanced your own jujitsu?
So definitely helps with inversions. Like having a strong but flexible spine
Mm-hmm.
is definitely a benefit, because you can get into some weird weird positions that your body is not ready for, right? So if you're practicing twisting, especially, it's gonna feel a lot better. And just having like not, I don't think the flexibility is necessarily the thing that makes the biggest difference, is having the strength at those end ranges.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going through an arm bar, and if your shoulder is tight, then that armbar is going to get tight really quickly.
Yeah.
But if you're strong in the shoulder at that range, you have more time to defend those positions. Or if someone sweeps your foot out and you're not used to extending your leg that far, you can have like a pretty bad hamstring injury or a groin injury or something. But if you have strength in that end range, you're going to be okay,
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So I want to talk now about your experience this year competitively gearing up for Nogi Worlds and then, your journey to Nogi Worlds. You said last year you just gotten your purple belt. It was like a see what happens. And then you came out of it with giving yourself some homework. So, how did you implement that over this year? How did you gear up for Nogi Worlds this year? And how was it different? To get just throw a million questions.
No problem. I think like a couple of things that I did distinctively different were giving myself specific goals that were smaller. So like getting that game that I was describing, or if we come off a break, I'm gonna take a shot, or getting that arm drag down up situation sorted out.
Mhm.
So really working on how to fix the problems that I had already faced in competition was one of them. But the other one that was really, really fun was at the smaller local tournaments like Jiu Jitsu World League, I would sign up in the adults division.
Ooh.
And so it was like intimidating, but like so exhilarating too. I'm like, the first one that I did, I ended up getting bronze. I think there were six of us in the bracket, which is so much more than what we get in the Masters, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm lucky if I get one person, maybe two people. And so I wanted the challenge of younger athletes who are faster usually, but also more matches.
Hmm.
So that's why I started signing up in the adults division. And after that first one, I remember thinking like, well, what have I done? Like that very first match, like it was so intense, but it was also my favorite match of the year,
Hmm.
because it allowed me to do jujitsu that doesn't normally come out in my competitions. Um, she was so fast, and not fast in ways that I was expecting. Like I thought, her passing or like on the feet was going to be fast, but really what took me by surprise was the transitions. So a lot of times in my age bracket, especially my weight bracket, like you get to a position and you're kind of there for a while. Like it's heavy, it's grindy, but this girl was so fast. Like I would get to a position and she'd already be gone. I'm like, wait, just let me grab onto you. But it was so fun because in those transitions, you start catching other things, right? So she had taken a shot and I grabbed her head into a guillotine. I sat back for it. Her head popped out and I immediately turned into an omoplata. We were
Mhm.
kind of like stuck there for a little while. And then I went to come up on the sweep. She escaped, took my back. I escaped. Like it was just so much more dynamic.
Yeah.
And it was by far my favorite match of the year. Even though I lost that, like whatever, it was my favorite match.
Yeah, it's kind of fun when you get that back and forth with your opponent, and you feel like, hey, like I'm in this. Like even if you lose, you feel like I was in that and I competed. You know,
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
judo.
exactly. Yeah, and it's just like um it really challenged me and I was so grateful for it. So then I signed up again at another Jiu Jitsu World League for adults, and that one was even more intense. Like I got bronze again, and it's funny. My kids always want me to get bronze. They're like, "Come on, you have too many golds.
Oh,
We need to even it out." So I was like, "Well, there you go."
it's funny because like 2024 for me was like the year of bronzes, and honestly, most of them were, there were three girls in the division, so they were like essentially participation trophies. So I'm
Yeah,
like, all right, 2025, let's make this the silver year. Like,
yeah.
but
I remember my very first competition. It was at white belt, and it was so funny because I had worked like with my coach or whatever to make like a game plan. Like, what is your, if everything goes ideal, perfect, you're gonna do this takedown, this pass, whatever, right?
hmm
And I'm in there and we're like hand fighting or whatever, and the girl went for like a drop seonagi,
yeah.
but she lost the grip of my gi, and so she ended up on her knees facing away from me. And I remember the internal dialogue. I'm standing there, I'm like, should I take her back? But that's not part of the game plan.
Oh my
I was like so in my head. I'm like, but that's not the game plan. And then I just kind of like shoved her over and like directed it back to the game plan, which is hilarious because I'm like, I've grown so much since then,
God.
right? Like, obviously, I would never just stand there with their back exposed. But at the time, I was just like, oh, like, there's these other things that I could do, but that's not what we practice. And that, like, goes back to the whole you can escape side control before they get to side control.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like I'm still working out the whole game plan thing and trying to figure out what works for me, because if I do something linear, I will do that. I will commit to the linear plan, and
Yeah,
and then my brain won't see the other opportunities. Um
yeah.
yeah, so what is your strategy for creating a game plan now as you've, competed more and more?
So now, like, I know the moves, the techniques, the submissions that I am very comfortable with, that I'm very good at, that I get high success. And so everything kind of tries to funnel it to that. And I don't have like a specific, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this to get there, because that doesn't always happen, right?
Yeah.
And this is, I'm now also teaching the Nogi class at night at Mythic on Wednesdays at 6 if anyone wants to come.
Yeah.
And I do it very like um game based.
Mhm.
So I set certain tasks for each person, like two players, they both have an objective,
Mhm.
and setting up the environment so that you start to perceive opportunities
Yeah.
rather than being so prescriptive, like, oh, we're going to do this and then this and then this. I want I want the opportunity for people to develop their own style.
Mhm.
And I think giving the freedom to explore that as long as they get the outcome at the end
Mhm.
is, well, it's beneficial to me. So I like teaching that way. The classes are pretty intense, I've been told. So I try to back it off or like gauge it depending on who's coming in. but it's so much fun. And it, as the instructor, it's so much fun to see how other people solve those problems,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because and sometimes it's, a white belt does something totally off that I never would have done, but it works,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes it only works because they're with another white belt, but that's fine, right? Like they're discovering, they're learning, they're moving their bodies, and they're starting to understand cause and effect of like, if I do this, they do that, or vice versa, right? So I think it's really exciting to teach that way.
Mhm.
I love training that way.
Yeah.
It's like so exploratory.
Yeah, I love when we're doing like the constraint based where it's like you're only
Hmm.
allowed like this, or they're like, okay, the only submissions you're allowed are arm bars, or like, you have to start this way, and like once you like you can only pass standing, like things like that. And it does make you kind of do that cause and effect and kind of make you curious and exploratory. And it's just fun.
Yeah, it's so much fun, right? Like it changes the game because you're not just like, okay, I'm gonna drill this and then you're gonna drill this, like, which gets boring, right? And then people check out. Well, I think when you're doing like constraints-based games, you have to be present. You have to be all in. Otherwise, you're just gonna get mauled, right? Like, because no one's just passively going through it. Like, you have to be thinking, you have to be looking at reactions and perceiving the opportunities to do something.
Mhm.
And I think that's where, for me at least, that's where the most growth has been. Like, I think the best way to describe it is you're preparing yourself to deal with novelty because not everyone is going to react the same way, right? And you can't
Yeah.
rely on those reactions. So if you can prepare yourself for novelty, I think you're going to go a lot farther.
Yeah, I really love that phrase, and that's such a great way to think about it. One of my professors once made a comment about, the people that he sees improving are the ones that are curious and like they're willing to
Hmm.
try different things. And so I try to remind myself of that. Like, don't, you could I could train the exact same way every week, do the same game, do the moves that work best for me. But the thing is, like, the second you get someone whose game just throws that off, what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. You have to be able to navigate that.
You talked earlier about, trying to create a community within your women's class. And besides, which of the month?
Which of the month? Yeah.
Which I love. That's such a great concept. What other ways have you found have been helpful in creating that community and training women?
So I just try to make them aware and invite them to any open mats, any seminars, like constantly. Like this year was the year of seminars for me. I think I went to 6 different seminars, most of them being women's only, which was amazing. Like, and being like putting myself out there into the larger community and being recognized, which was super weird, but also cool.
Yeah.
Um, it it really solidified the fact that this is a community based, this is a trust based sport. It is like if you don't develop those relationships, you're probably not going to progress and you might even quit, right? Because if you don't have those relationships and that trust, then you're never going to be able to really push yourself and grow in the sport.
Yeah.
And so I think just trying to convey that message because one thing that I learned from going to all those different seminars this year is that women, we all have kind of the same fear of like, I don't even know exactly, but just not being comfortable going to a women's only seminar. People were like, well, I don't know if everyone's going to already have a group that they've gone with, and I'm going to be like on the outside.
Hmm.
Um, and just hearing basically every woman have the same fears and insecurities and hangups. And I was like, well, guys, if we all feel this way,
Hmm.
then there is no problem, right? We can all come together and just be.
Yeah.
Like, there doesn't need to be that fear. There doesn't need to be those insecurities because we're all anxious. We're all feeling those same things. So we're all on the same page.
Hmm. And at the end of the day, we're all here because we love Jiu Jitsu, and we are like, there's a lot of us, but we're still the minority in the Jiu Jitsu
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. And like, it was so awesome to go to those women's only things and see so many people come together from so many different places because yeah, there are a lot, but they're so spread out, right? And so by going to these women's events, like you get the opportunity to train with so many women and find someone that's like your size, your body type,
Hmm.
which is amazing because it's so far in between, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was just watching two of my male teammates today, and they were like going ham on each other, and I'm like, I don't know that I think I have one teammate at my gym that is my size, body type, and like skill level, so we can go ham on each other. But like the guys are all bigger than me, so like I'm trying not to get hurt. And then the only girl who was in class today is the 16-year-old who's really sweet and like I'm definitely not going full force on her. She's a
Yeah.
white belt. She's new. Like, I'm not gonna beat up the 16-year-old. So yeah, the
Yeah.
seminars are nice. Like when we went to the girls and geese down at Gracie South Bay, like I think I rolled with like one of their competitive blue belts, and she was probably a teenager. It
Yeah.
was really fun, but she beat me up.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's always surprising, right? You can't tell necessarily from looking at someone, especially when it's no gi, because you're not always wearing ranked gear, right? So
Yeah,
you get these roles and you're just like, wow, I didn't expect that.
yeah,
And it's so much fun. It's
yeah.
so much
No, it totally.
And like most of the seminars and stuff that I went to, I went on my own. And I know a lot of the women that I train with are like, I don't know how you can do that. Like, I wouldn't even go to an open mat on my own, never mind a whole weekend seminar on my own. I'm like, I get that, but I also don't have like a ride or die training partner, right? So if I want to get more experience, if I want to get more body types and like just collect data to get better, I have to cross train. I have to go out there. I have to put myself out there. And it is intimidating because you're walking into a room and yeah, most people come with someone else. And so you're that one person that's like, hey, you want to be a group of three? Like, but nobody cares at the end of the day. Like, we're all just there to train and get better and have fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, my first experience with that was I was looking for an open mat on the weekend near me because I train like 30 minutes away from where I live. I train close to where I work. And so I found an open mat that was near me and I just went completely by myself. And people were like, "You came here like by yourself?" Like, well, I read on the website that they welcomed all schools, and so I figured I would just show up, and there'd be people from all different schools. It was mostly people from that school, but they were so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually how it goes, but they're welcoming. Like it doesn't matter. Like everyone just wants to get more rounds in and meet more people that they can train with.
Yeah, no, totally. And then like, you have those people too when you're competing. My last competition, on there was a girl in my division that I know from a women's class that I cross train at another gym. And then not in our division, but competing on the same mat was another girl that we knew from that women's class. And like we were taking selfies, sending them to the teacher. Like, you make these connections and then you show up to a competition and maybe you're the only person like from your school competing, but you've got that person that from the gym that you cross train at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
love that. Yeah.
yeah. No, what do you think is your favorite thing about jujitsu?
My favorite thing, it's just so much fun. Like people, I laugh a lot during rolls, which some people, if they don't know me, they're like, why are you laughing at me? I'm like, I'm not, I swear I'm not laughing at you. I'm just enjoying the moment. Like
Mhm.
it brings me so much joy that you just laugh, like you just smile. Like I could be getting choked or armbarred or whatever, but I have a big smile on my face, and it's so much fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, half the time if I'm laughing during a roll, I'm laughing at myself or I'm laughing because I like, as I'm giving up the sweep or
Yes.
getting choked, I just realized what I did. And I'm like, well,
Hmm.
and it's not, and I'll say and I'm not saying like, oh, I gave that to you, like I let you have that, but I'm like, I know exactly how I gave that to you. Like, I know
Yes.
how you got that. But also, like, good on you because you're amazing because you saw that opportunity and you capitalized. Like, it's.
Yeah. Absolutely. Definitely sweeps make me laugh. I'm
Oh,
like, well,
yeah.
here we go.
As you feel yourself like go, well, some my the latest is I know sometimes when I'm passing guard, I lean too far over and my head's like way over. And so,
Hmm.
you know, sometimes I realize that as, my feet are flying in the air.
Yeah.
Like,
You're just
yep,
like, wee.
did it again, did it again.
Yeah. But I also think, like, on a more serious note, if you let it, jujitsu will be like a vehicle for growth within yourself. Like,
Mhm,
I know this is totally flipped to, having fun and laughing and everything, but it kind of is like it holds up a mirror to things that maybe you don't want to address about yourself, right? Like,
mhm,
how do you deal with conflict? How do you deal with stress? How do you respond to a chaotic situation? Or, like, do you give up? Do you melt down? Do you get scared? Do you run away? Like, all these things that you probably didn't expect to learn about yourself doing jiu-jitsu.
mhm.
I think it's a really great vehicle for that
Yeah, and that
if you let
yeah,
it.
no, that's a really great point, and that actually segues perfectly into my next question, which is what challenges you the most about jujitsu?
Physically is guard for sure. I have no guard. I lovingly refer to my guard as the no guard guard. Um, and I have a lot of thoughts about bottom position, to be honest. Like, from a self-defense point of view, like, why would you ever go to the bottom, right?
Uh,
But from a tournament point of view, like, there's only one way to score points. That's if you get a sweep. So you better be really good at submitting from the bottom if you're going to go there.
yeah.
Whereas on top, like, you transition through all these different positions which gain you points, and it's positionally dominant. So, like, why would you not want to be there? That's like, and I hope that that will evolve over time so that I can, like, not have that mental block to actually play and work on my guard. But yeah, my guard sucks.
I'm more of a pressure passer than I am a guard player.
Yeah.
But we all have guard. We have the things we gravitate towards. Doesn't mean that I don't try to develop the other, especially the sweeps and the submissions from the bottom.
Hmm.
I find the smaller people are really good at the submissions from the bottom because they have to be.
They have to be, right? Yeah.
It's always like the like petite 100-pound girl with the really skinny wrist that like literally knocks you unconscious from a baseball choke that she got while you were passing hard.
Yeah. You're like, wait a minute, I thought I was winning this exchange.
No, and I literally one of my teammates, she's tiny little 100-pound girl, and she put a girl to sleep at
Mm.
a tournament because the girl thought she had her guard passed, and I was like up like watching in the stands, and this girl like thinks she has her guard passed. Next thing I know, I see my teammate and she just goes belly down, and I'm like, she's not turtling. Why isn't she turtling? And then I realize the girl's unconscious, and my coach just looks back at me and he goes like this, like baseball.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm talking about it like 7 months later because I'm like, that's like my favorite jujitsu moment of the year that like from one of my teammates. Like it was so good.
Yeah, good for her. That's awesome. At the Worlds a couple weeks ago in the open class, I had this one girl who was like quite petite, and I have this like weird mental block situation with competing where if I know you as a person, or if I get to know you, or if you talk to me in the bullpen
Mhm,
or something, I kind of go into like mom mode. And this has happened to me earlier on in competition, like the girls like panicking or like expressing a lot of anxiety, and I'll literally go into mom mode and be like, it's okay, like, you can do hard things, you're gonna be fine, trust your jujitsu, trust your training or whatever. And but it doesn't stop at the bullpen. Like, I'll carry that into the match
yeah.
and then be like genuinely happy for them when they win, when they beat me. And I'm like, oh, you did so great. Like, it's so silly,
Mhm.
so ridiculous. So I was really thankful that one of my friends texted me right before the open. She's like, no mom, no mom mode. Like you're there to win. Doesn't matter how small they are, doesn't matter how panicked they are. Like you have to do your thing. And
Yeah.
having that reminder, I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like I cannot go to mom mode.
Mhm.
And then in the open class, this girl was like really petite, and I was just like, okay, it doesn't matter. Like she signed up knowing that it's open class. There's gonna be bigger people, and she jumped guard, which is not something that normally happens in, heavier weight classes, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Um, and she did it twice. And the second time I like blocked her hips and was able to pass like really heavy smash pass.
Mhm.
But the first time she ended up getting an arm bar and like hanging off of me. Like I stood up with her hanging off my arm.
Mhm.
And it's so ridiculous when I look at that video because I kind of like swung, like almost like a kettlebell swing
Oh
with
my.
her on my arm. And I can, when I hear the video back, my coach is like, no, 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 just like shake her off.
Mhm.
And like, I don't know, it was so funny to think that I just like deadlifted this girl up and then swung her around like a whole human.
Yeah.
Like, really sorry. But also glad I didn't like go into mom mode and not do that.
Yeah. No, and it's that is a difference. Like, you know, with people competing, like some people um can like chat up, be like in the bullpen, and then like go like full savage like as soon as the ref says fight. But then some
Hmm.
people like it's like I can't talk to them. I
Yeah.
kind of just, and we can be friends after.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely me. Like if I don't want to talk to you in there because then I won't be able to like bring my full self to the match.
Hmm.
Like I don't want them to be human.
Yeah.
They need to be a stranger.
Oh, it's interesting. Like I'm the person befriending my fellow competitor. Like I'm that person, but like there was tap cancer last year. The girl I fought for third place, like it was her first tournament ever. She was really nervous, and like she was really like, and this was at white belt too. Like, and she didn't have a coach there, and she was really tired. So like I did beat her, but I submitted her so gently. Like it was like I was like I could tell she was tired. I was on in mount, and like I had her arms, so I just like got it to the ground and like very slowly like went for the Americana because I was like she's gonna tap. Like I know she's done, so I'm not gonna like.
Yeah,
It was like the gentlest Americana.
that's so nice of you.
Yeah, I, I I was very honestly I was like up on points, and I was like this is my weakness competing is I will about and I'm competing masters, so our matches are 5 minutes. But like halfway through I'm like, okay, where's a submission? I'm scared like if I just keep going I'm gonna lose it, so I start looking for a submission and then I lose anyway. But that was on that match with her. I was like, I need to submit her before I fuck this up.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that before.
I mean, I've seen videos of people like, like black belts, like high level black belts, where they are up on points and then get submitted at the very end. It
Yeah,
happens.
it happens, yeah. And I think it happens in the bigger tournaments like at Worlds, right? Because there's so much on the line, right? Especially in the black belt adults division, like they are going until the very last second.
Yeah.
And the energy in there is like so wild. I love it.
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool. I'm looking forward, I think this year my goal is to compete more and to make it to Masters World. Probably
Mm.
not no gi. I don't train enough of that, but we'll see. I'm trying to train more no gi, so we'll see. But yeah, it'd be cool to go to those tournaments and like see that in person.
Yeah, it's really fun. I do feel like there's a lot of vendors and stuff there, and Gadaima was there, which was cool because,
Yeah,
obviously they're very like women oriented, women owned, but a lot of the other vendors I felt like invisible. Like I remember walking by with my coach and my teammates. I had just won, I had my medal on or whatever, and one of the vendor guys was like, "Oh, wait, wait, wait." And he threw them each a free rash guard, and then I'm just just standing there. I'm
Are you
like,
shitting?
what? Like, what is this?
Seriously?
Yeah, so it's like I think that it's come a long way, but it's still very much male dominated,
Oh,
male oriented.
no,
I'm like, wow, I did
uh,
not expect that.
yeah, I do love like, I think a good number of the people I've had, not a good number, but a couple of people that I've had on the pod, I think are sponsored by Godiva. So
Hmm.
now I'm seeing like more and more of their content, and then like I see a lot of like Alchemizes content, and I'm like seeing these women-owned, women-run brands, and seeing all the content they put out with their athletes. It's yeah, it's still male dominated, but it's like so to see that, and just hearing that story about the rash guards, I'm so like mad for you. Like, come on,
Right?
come on.
And the thing is that everyone involved was oblivious,
Of
right?
course they were. Jeez,
Like, thanks, guys. Don't mind me. I'll
yeah.
just keep walking.
I only like I just double podiumed, but whatever.
Yeah,
You don't
no
want to
big
put any
deal.
crash guards on me? Like, come on.
Yeah.
God. Uh, um, so I think we are almost at the end. So I'm going to ask you the question I ask every interviewee at the end of the podcast. What advice would you give to someone on their first class going into jujitsu?
Oh, that's a good one. I think just be kind to yourself. Like, don't try to understand it all. Don't don't have any expectations of yourself. Just go in, meet the people, and move around. Just like I think you really at the beginning are exploring how your body moves because we're not used to moving around on the ground anymore. So you have to be like open and exploratory and really kind to yourself because it's hard.
Yeah, it is, and it's a process. Um,
Definitely.
yeah, so we'll end with that with be kind to yourself, Jody. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome to see. Awesome to see that performance at Worlds. So congratulations on that, and thank you so much for coming and talking to me. I'm glad we finally were able to get you on here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great talking to you.
All right. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed hearing Jody's story. If you'd like to find Jody, you can find her over on Instagram at Nogi Yogi. If you'd like to share your story, send me a DM on Instagram at BJJ Podcast or send me an email, bjjbabespodcast@gmail.com. Hope to hear from you. All right, everyone. Take care. Bye.